a ball carrier that just hates being tackled. Like, it's offensive that you've even tried to tackle him.
Hello, and in the week that the Bears and the Falcon Street Saracens are going to warm up their championship campaign against the new Pro 16 teams, could the Lions be at home for the South African tour? And which players should we be keeping an eye on for the next upcoming year? So that's all to come on episode 26 of the Ruck and Roll podcast. Joe and Harry join me. Lads, how's your first day of being back in lockdown?
Very similar to the day before that, funnily enough. Working from home is working from home, whether it's legally mandated or not.
Mine's quite different. Gone from teaching some year threes to now just sat on the PlayStation. So that's the foreseeable for me.
It's strange how just a day changes. But obviously, we'll start with a bit of coronavirus. And we were actually thinking about going originally, way before coronavirus was a thing, to South Africa for the Lions tour. That's now looking very much like that it's going to be a home Lions tour. With obviously they're playing Japan at Edinburgh. There's talks of them playing the tests Twickenham, the Principality, and then in Dublin. What's your thoughts on having the tour in the UK if you can't, is there a point of having the tour if you can't go to South Africa?
How serious is that plan? I've been out of the loop on this one. I obviously know that the game is happening against Japan, and I know that it's looking unlikely that they'll go to South Africa this year, but are they seriously thinking about having it at home?
From what I've read from a couple of sources was that the Lions committee are meeting about potentially moving it across to South Africa, because South Africa, the SR, I think it's it's not the SRU, it's whatever the South African governing body said, it's not commercially viable for them to have the Lions with no fans. So there'd be no point of them having it. No one wants to move it to 2022 because all the big nations have got big tours at that point. So the idea would be to have it this year. But I think they're just running through the plan because, I mean, to be honest, with the majority of a lot of South Africans actually playing over in England and in Europe, most of the players are all that they would be over here. And also, if they start the Pro 16, well, that's when they start next year. But you're going to have a lot of them already going to be over there. The fans are already here. Yes, obviously, it's a bit of a shame for South African fans, but you still got a lot of expat South Africans over here. I think you've got to just crack on and do it. I think it provides a different opportunity, I think, for the Lions to be at home. Yeah, though it's all about going to these situations, but also it might also provide an opportunity for bringing new fans of rugby in. Like, as I say, the Lions is the top performers in those four nations against the best team in the world. Potentially, you could chuck in a midweek game against France, which would be really good, really fun. You know, I'd be all for the move back to the UK personally.
Yeah. No, I think it would be fantastic and a very unique experience and thing for them to do. Certainly at this stage, it's very hard to work out. It's very hard to predict with any confidence whether you'd have fans here, because in the summer, whether you'd be able to get full stadiums of fans in, because it's very difficult to tell week by week what things are going to look like with the virus. But I think one thing that is probably more likely now, this is obviously a lot of things can happen between now and then, but it's probably more likely that you'll be able to have fans in stadiums here than in South Africa, just based on random speculation about the various levels of progress that's been made so far. I know the UK is doing quite well, all things considered. So you have to assume that would continue. And I must admit, I don't know anything about how South Africa are doing, but I suspect that it's not quite as well as the UK vaccinations wise. And that'll be the thing that determines whether you can have fans. And then for a lot of international rugby, if you can't have fans, it's almost financially not worth it. Like, one of the reasons that the Lions is so good is that they can charge £200 a ticket, and every stadium in the world will be full wherever they go. They could play in the Camp Nou with 100,000 people there, and you could charge £400 a ticket, and it would be full. Like that is why the Lions continues to exist, because they fill these enormous stadiums with people that pay a huge amount of money to get there. And yeah, they'll probably do it this time, and they'll do it just for the television money. But the upside for the unions is nowhere near as much as it would be if you can't have fans.
So, anything from you on that?
Nothing really more to add. I think just the biggest thing, I think, for fans, as you've said previously off air before we aired this, the fact that we're in a lockdown again and there's nothing to look forward to, having that extra kind of bit of elite sport to look forward to, I think is massive for most people. So even if if we are able to get a Lions tour and some test matches up and running for people to watch, I think it'll be brilliant. I think it'd be a real shame if we aren't able to do any tour at all. And if that means bringing it across to the UK, then great. There's been some really interesting things put out there over the last kind of week or so with all this speculation. I've seen somebody put on a proposed tour of France where they play some top 14 teams, which looks interesting. And there was another one that somebody put on of a tour of like Oceania, playing like a Pacific Islanders team, Australia, New Zealand. Obviously, it's quite a different prospect. And if we are able to continue to be against South Africa, then great. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing to throw into something that's been quite set over the last however many years. South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, maybe doing something slightly different and having it at home is a bit of an insurgence of energy into it. But yeah, we'll see. We'll have to see what happens.
I must say, it's probably something that, especially if they're going to have it here, it's something that they can organise quite last minute, because it's not a great administrative burden to put 4 test matches on at Twickenham, the Millennium Stadium, Murrayfield, and the Aviva. That's not very difficult for the unions. No. They could do that with a couple of weeks' notice. So I think we can really afford to wait and see, because it could look very, very different they're saying a month and a half's time. I mean, I don't know how likely that actually is, but we'll have a better picture of this very quickly, certainly by sort of Easter time. I would personally, now this is almost certainly not going to happen because the South African Union need the money, but I think it would be fantastic to pause the Southern Hemisphere sort of carousel and have a insert Lions touring France, particularly right now, given how good France are. That would be my ideal. Unlikely, given that the South African Union need the money, the French Union don't, and the French clubs would probably disagree with it.
They'd have a massive kick-off, wouldn't they?
But would be very cool.
Well, certainly, if it does go ahead for South Africa, they might have found an absolute bolter in the case of number 8, Jasper Weyser. We'll start with getting into the rugby. An absolute standout performance for him for Leicester at the weekend. Leicester have got number 8. Finally, they've got Jordan Taufua. I don't know where he's going to fit back into that back row, because Jasper Weyser was just absolutely phenomenal. I think it's going to be in around this ballpark, but Opta stats were 88 meters carried, while live on BT they mentioned 112 meters, like for a number 8, which is crazy. I mean, I think it could be towards that 100 mark, because he did make a decent 40-meter break out of nothing. He is something absolutely else. Yes, he got a yellow card for the high shot on Watson, which is not nice. You don't really want to see that. But from a Leicester point of view, having George Ford doing his thing at his England box, not England boxing, but he's kicking up and unders, put Anthony Watson, made Anthony Watson like a really average championship fullback. Really, just he did not have a good game at all in opposed to Freddie Stewart, who we'll probably talk about in a moment. But Leicester, for me, maybe this might kickstart them. They had all their internationals back, like international back line. Ford was there, Youngs was good, but Ellis Gens makes a massive difference to them at loose head. Just carries the ball into contact so well, runs in hard. Whether this will propel Leicester up the table, who knows? I think if they can keep their internationals together and fit, they're probably going to be mid-table at best, because I don't think the forward underbelly they've got is there. They've got some young players in there. But if they keep Jasper Wiese fit and they get Tafanua back on at 6, they'll be very, very good. So yeah, Leicester on the charge, really. Anything on Leicester? From what
Yeah, no, I agree. We were quite pessimistic about how their squad building had gone, and I think the concerns that they're a bit too reliant on their international players is probably still there, given that both there's obviously nothing they can do about it, but the fact that they lose both their 9 and their 10, who are so experienced and leaders, but they lose both of them whenever there are any international games is a real problem, and it's almost insurmountable, to be honest, unless Henry or Diaz Vanilla sort of sort themselves out effectively and get to the point where they can win games with one of those two playing, because otherwise they'll just be stuck winning most of the games that they play with Ford and losing most of the games that they play without him. Which, I mean, it's perfectly fine. They won't get relegated.
No, I don't think they'll be in the bottom 6. I can't see them going higher than 6th. They haven't got the squad. Like, if you take out their best backline available to them, and it was fine, it was okay. I don't think Matt Scott and Jaco Tauta are the most enigmatic centre combination. But Kobesh Van Wijk probably had his best game for Leicester that I'd seen. He looked good. Nadolo does, when he gives him 10 metres, he gets a lovely offload away, which sets up I can't remember his name. I think it's Henry that goes in the corner. One of the younger lads that was good. But yeah, you take Ford and Genja out of that team. It's a completely different ball game.
But a really good find in Visa. He was quite good for the Cheetahs last year. One of those guys that carries angry, which is always fun, and becoming more and more sort of popular and effective. Obviously not popular, so like it is what it is for these people, but a ball carrier that just hates being tackled. Like, it's offensive that you've even tried to tackle him. He's good fun to watch. Looking at I've just pulled up his stats. I think these are from Opta. It's 90 meters gained, 3 clean breaks, 9 defenders beaten. Yeah, that's
and he was off
good
for 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic for any player on the pitch. That would be great for a winger.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, really, really, really good game from him, and he'll be there all season, which is key for them, provided he doesn't get injured. And if he does, they've got Taufur to come in. A fantastic find, and hopefully quite a good value.
Well, another massive find for Leicester continues to be Freddie Stewart. Like, they've brought in Kiri Miravalu over the summer from La Rochelle, and he's on the bench. I think his fitness is not up there at the moment. I think he was nursing something. That's why they really brought him in. But Freddie Stewart fully deserves his place on there. He is the best player in the Premiership at the moment under the high ball. He was just diffusing everything that was thrown at him. He also took the ball off Watson about 3 times in the game. Again, I'm not saying at all that Anthony Watson's a bad rugby player, because he's not. It was quite interesting. I think Sam Warburton had put him on the wing for his Lions team, which I thought was a bit. But on the basis of his bar performance, nowhere near. He wouldn't even get on the tour based on that performance. Like, Freddie Stewart just absolutely had him on toast. He looks quick in open field. He reminds me of quite a lot of Falau, obviously without his disgraceful views, but he's just tall, rangy, powerful. They found he's one to watch for this year, as we'll talk about later on. But on a more Bath perspective, I worry for them, because that Bath, not worried for them. They'll be absolutely fine. I don't know whether they'll be as good as they were last year, but they have to simply get another fly half in. This is not me bagging Reece Priestland. Like, Reece Priestland is a good, solid fly half. He's got the most points last year. He does kick his goals very reliably, and he kicked them in this game. But when you have with a back line of Joseph, with Redpath, with McConaughey, with Watson, with Rokanaguni, they should have really put away that Leicester. They were at a better back line than that Leicester back line. They couldn't get any go for. They couldn't get any dynamic enigma stuff in there. They bring Matavesi off the bench, who's not a 10. He's a running 12, who misses a goal kick, which is really, really a penalty, which is really, really important. They just need someone a bit more creative in that, because they've got the players, they're just not doing anything with them.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and you sort of one of those things that sometimes happens in a salary cap league where quite a lot of money is tied up in a player that's not, and a player in a position that's not performing or not quite performing to the level that they're being paid. And there's not a lot you can do about it. You just have to do your best until their contract comes to an end or someone takes off your hands and try again. But the majority of this Bath squad are young. The coach is young and seemingly competent and well liked. They'll be okay. I think I was less down on Watson than I think you are, Johnny. My concern with him has been that he lost a bit of explosiveness in those sort of effectively year that he had out with the various Achilles problems that he had, and he looked more powerful today. Had a couple of nice runs, today rather, this weekend just gone. High ball stuff. Steward's just really good. He's quite
that's
a
what
bit
I mean.
tall.
That's why it was just he'd completely outshone a British and Irish Lions starting player.
Yeah, which happens sometimes. Rugby is one of those games where the best player doesn't win every single time. Like, every so often, Sam Warburton got cleared out. He didn't get the turnover every single time. One of those things. But I think Watson will be okay. Probably still rusty, but yeah, fantastic for Steward. Especially, he's not just a sort of high ball defensive kick and hang back merchant. He's got those running lines. He's got good hands. He's pretty fast.
He's only 19.
Yeah, could be fun.
Definitely one for the future. Staying on the South African contingent, another one that had a relatively good game. Man of the match was Dan de Preer, who's been cited. Thank the Lord he was cited. Did anyone see his lovely shoulder hit to Chris Harris?
No, I didn't see that one.
So yeah. Harris is basically going to ground. He's on the floor. De Preer has just flown in with no arms and hit him in the head with the shoulder. Gloucester then taken Harris off for a HIA, and they've not even checked it, which I thought was really, really bizarre. Which isn't great.
To be fair, you can need an HIA without being tackled in the head, and you can be concussed without anything hitting your head. This wasn't one of those situations. No. Because again, and similarly, you could rule in this. I mean, I suspect this will happen, that Harris was going down very quickly and the period committed. Now, that's not a complete mitigation. It's a sort of level of mitigation. But given that he was going with force and no arms, he'll probably, off the top of my head, remembering the flow chart, I feel like 6 weeks sounds about right.
Yeah.
4 no arms to the head with a bit of mitigation. 6 weeks sounds right.
But it should have been reviewed in the game, because him going off would have made a difference to those final few minutes, really, in a very close game. And obviously, what wasn't the most flashiest thing, and I'll get Joe's opinion in a moment on Gloucester, but from a Sale point of view, obviously with Steve Diamond leaving, I just wrote in my notes when I was watching it, Steve Diamond had a massive I think a positive hole, because they play in their really, really brute, their forced way. They're missing Johan van Rensburg. They're missing Manu Tuolang in the centre, but I'm the thing that really annoyed me about Sale was their team selection in their back line was humongously frustrating. It's 2 weeks in a row. They put Sam James, their best defensive 13, at 15. They've got their backup fly half, who's not even a 12, let alone one of the most important positions on the field in Rob the Prier. You've got Luke James on the bench who can play 15. Like, the most obvious thing there is you start Luke James at 15, you play Sam James at 13. Sam James and Sam Hill is a decent centre combination with Rob the Prier on the bench to bring on. It was just weird. That selection baffled me. Faf was a bit better, but he just needs the captaincy taken off him because he really struggles with that additional leadership. John O'Ross was back, which was important. I think Sale nicked one as opposed to being any good. I think Gloucester will look at that and potentially see that as a missed opportunity. But as the Gloucester
Ross's yellow card was quite funny. Ross's yellow card was quite funny.
Oh, that was very funny.
I like acting as if there was never a rule that you needed to use your arms tackling in rugby. Like, just straight opening the door when you're holding something in both your hands, just lean into it. Just ridiculous. At least he didn't complain when he got the card.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
They made a big deal about Gloucester being bottom, though.
Well, that's not very good, is it?
Not for long if Lloyd Evans plays like that.
I feel like we haven't been great. I don't feel like we've really deserved to be bottom, though. There's certainly a few games that I think we've just let slide and let go. I think this is a case of it. I haven't seen the whole game. But the whole thing with Gloucester, it's been the same thing for years, is in very small periods, we're awesome. We play some really good rugby, really good, exciting rugby at times. And then at other times, we're just diabolical. And it seems that more and more at the moment, we're getting more of the bad stuff than the good stuff, and letting ourselves down for the good stuff that we do. And I don't think that's particularly a Skivington thing, because it's happened with whoever we've had at the top. But I don't know what needs to change, really. Something does. It's probably just an attitude at the moment of, when you get into that streak of losing a few games, it's very difficult to then get yourself up and get into that mindset of we're going to win every game now. So I don't know if it's a bit of that and a bit of morale behind the scenes, but yeah, something needs to change.
I'd say they need Willie Hines back. Not a slight at all on Varney and Venter. I think they're going to be fantastic scrum halves. Really, like, Varney's already been capped by Italy in the autumn. I really, really rate him highly after when I watched him more closely in the Irish game last season. But like, they just need a bit more of that leadership on the field in the key times. They kicked the ball away too much, and there was too many box kicks that were not contestable. May wasn't in the game or not. They didn't bring him in enough. But Louis Rees-Zammit showed his absolute pace. It's a lovely putt. That try he scored was absolutely fantastic from Lloyd Evans. It's an unbelievable pass through the gap. Yeah. It's so good. He shouldn't be doing that. That's ridiculous. And then he just puts on the afterburners and he goes. I think like Leicester, Gloucester will be in the bottom half of the table. But relegation is quite hard to call, I think, at the moment, I'd say.
Yeah. We'll see. Another club that struggles with the internationals gone, unfortunately, with Rees-Zammit and now being picked.
Well, they lose three of their wingers, don't they? They lose Thorley, Rees-Zammit, and
May.
Yeah,
it's all well and good having all three of them, but then you then have none of them.
Could do with Carreras, couldn't they?
Yes.
Get Carreras on the field.
Yeah. All the various Argentinians have arrived in Newcastle. I think we just lost Joe. Oh well.
Yeah, I noticed he might come back in a moment. Yeah, Matt, should we start with friend of the pod, Matthias Orlando? If you're listening to Matthias, hello. You had a good game at the weekend, son. Well done. Unlucky you were on the wrong side of the result. Bristol taking a 29-17 in the end. But Newcastle looked good again. Orlando carried very well. I've completely forgotten his name. I put him in my team of the week. Whoa, what's his name? George
position?
The
Team?
13, George Y. Wakakoko.
Thucky, I think it
That's
is.
it. I really like the look of him. 25,
Yeah.
he's been around Bath a little bit, but yeah, he's sort of went to Newcastle in the Championship. I like the look of him quite a lot. Newcastle played okay. They maybe lack that creative edge that better teams have, but they've put themselves in a position. I was saying to my dad, they've got 4 victories. You need 6 or 7 to stay in the Premiership. They've got to get 2 more. Definitely think they're good enough to beat teams below them. I think anyone that thinks they're going to get in the top 4, that is going to be a stretch for Newcastle. Their aim is probably to get in the top, at least to stay up, really. They're definitely probably going to do that. I don't think they're a relegation team. If they get injuries, that may or may not change, but I don't think they were going to beat Bristol at home. Bristol look very good again.
Yeah. Bristol are looking good without being flashy, which
Yeah.
is worrying because when they get flashier, they'll be very good. Like Nalango and Randrandra being good and helping the team win the game without absolutely annihilating the other team. That's the lowest of the low bars for them, and it's going to get fun when the ground dries up.
Nalango is seriously flipping quick.
Yeah, he's very good.
Like his try when he's treading water behind Sheedy, who's running like 120%, and then eventually just goes, "Oh, there you go."
Sheedy gets tired and
and he just goes,
hands it to his mate.
Oh, fantastic! He's going to be very good when he and Semi get singing again. I think Semi's been decent, but he's not been at his best. I don't think so. I think that he's still getting over that injury, but one, they can get them firing. I think you and Lloyd getting a good run in that other shirt will be deep. That'll be good. Obviously, Luke Morahan's back now, selection headaches, but it gives Bristol the chance to rotate. So,
and also good timing because Lloyd will be called up by Wales again.
Yeah.
For nations.
So, Bristol looking good. But let's talk about the team of the week. The Mighty Wasps, 34-5. Great result against I'm not going to say a second choice Exeter team because it was that they picked the team. I thought Wasps were very, very good. I thought Joe Launchbury was superb. James Gaskell at 6 was very, very good. Our boy Juan de Jong, who I thought had left and then has reappeared, was really good at 13. Paolo Adolque's good, but I want to start with the big man, Jeff Tumunga Allen. I've got a massive smile on my face of that man. 2 weeks in a row, he's just stolen the show. He was superb the week before, but that try, is it the Gaskell second try when he's out of position, then goes, oh, well, get back in position. It's so good. His hands are so good for a prop. Unbelievable.
Yeah. No, I was quite surprised when he moved to Wasps because he was, from my just watching Super Rugby on the telly point of view, he was one of the stronger props in New Zealand and really pushing on the door. Huge guy, 6'4", 6'5", easily big and strong enough to play, because I know that the All Blacks are one of the teams that sort of have proper height and weight parameters for their players that they want to make sure they get to before they'll pick them. And he certainly meets every physical requirement you could expect from a prop. He's obviously got, as you say, he's got perfectly good technical skills. And yeah, it was sort of only going to be so long before he really had a properly explosive game where he not quite wins the game for the team. But that's the thing about props, that like every so often they just have a game where it's, oh crikey, he was playing today and everybody knows about it. And yeah, a good player, and just another player that was good when he came to Wasps and he's continued to be very good. Because some clubs' recruitment, the player that arrives is not as good as the player that left his old club.
Yeah.
But Wasps integrate new signings as well as anybody.
Oh yeah.
In any sport that I follow, really. It's been a while since a player that Wasps signed, or sort of especially one from abroad, that Wasp signed that hasn't worked. I think Marty Moore's probably the last one I can think of off the top of my head that was just not a signing that worked.
Well,
but Tuma's been great.
what's your talking about people that aren't working? Who's someone who's kind of working in an attacking sense, but not working at all and defensively? Is Lima Sopawanga. He scored a try. He nearly ripped Jacob Manga's head off because Jacob Manga didn't pass him the ball in the first half, and then he didn't pass him the ball in the second half. But he just got mugged off by Richard Capstick, who scored one of the tries of the weekend. You shouldn't be scoring that from a blind side, that open side flank from going around him. It's a brilliant hitch kick, a 6'4" bloke doing a hitch kick. It's fantastic to see. He's missed 2 tackles again, though, playing 15. But he's not 15 though, and he's doing the goal. I think they've kind of humoured him by giving him the goal kicking responsibility, which is important. I think he missed the first one, but his kicking still better higher than a Munger anyway on percentages. I don't know whether they're battering a dead horse with him. I don't know.
Oh, as in you think they shouldn't stick with him?
Yeah, I don't know where he fits into that team because he's not their best 15 because Minozzi's better than him. He's not the best fly half because Jacob Manga's playing fly half.
Yeah,
I just don't. I don't. Fekatoa, like when they got Fekatoa, they 2 big New Zealanders. They've got Fekatoa and Sopawanga. Fekatoa took about 6 months to get going, and now he was unbelievable before he got injured.
Yeah.
But Sopawanga came in, nothing. A little bit, they moved him to fullback. That seemed to regenerate him. Some really good performances from there. But again, from attacking wise, yeah, fine. But you still got a guy who is effectively a fly half playing at 15 because they're waiting for Minozzi to come back. Because he went there, didn't he? He went there. He's been paid a decent amount of money to be the number 1 choice fly half. He's not the number 1 choice because they're going with a Manga. I don't know whether they want to cut that. I don't know.
It's probably yeah. On some level, I do agree. He's probably not. You're probably not getting the performance out of him that you could get out of spending that money on a different player or a different pair of players or even 3 players if they're sort of academy level. But I think he's perfectly fine. He's a very good second choice 10. I mean
that'd be incredible.
The best second choice 10 in the league.
Oh yeah.
I think there are lots of clubs that have 2 good 10s. There are lots of clubs that don't have any good 10s. For a club to have 2 very good 10s is good. I think he's perfectly good enough at 15. Obviously, defensively, not ideal. It might come to pass that Richard Capstick is quite special. I know he's quite well regarded at Exeter and England age group level.
He looks good.
So there might be other good fullbacks who are quote unquote.
But he doesn't get a hand on him though. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think he just gets a bit unbalanced, and Capstick goes. I think he just gets it wrong.
It's a great try from him. It's not like he's walked past him, but
yeah,
I expected him to do better. If he tackled him and he got kicked out of the tackle, fine. But it was the fact where it was a bit, he didn't really go for it and kind of went for it, didn't go, and he'd gone. That was and then he did. Then the same thing happened there was a break, which it's actually the replacement scrum half, who was absolutely fantastic off the bench, but I've forgotten his name now. Will something. It's a new lad. Anyway, I think it's a Flaherty that go. No, it's Josh Hodge who comes off the bench. Who I don't understand why he did. We'll come on to that in a moment. Why he didn't start. Anyway, goes through a hole, and he gets him in the back, and then they stop the certain try. But yeah,
I think it's working well enough at the moment. He had basically the reason that Amanga got the opportunity at the beginning, and why Sopawanga was not quite so good as everybody expected when he first arrived. He had some off-field stuff that I think we've spoken about in the past that was not helping his integration. nothing that reflects badly on him. I think it was sort of family home issues,
Yeah.
from what I remember. So, but he's now, I think he's almost one of the ones that benefited from lockdown. Sort of that, obviously nobody really benefits from lockdown, but sort of reconnecting with the family and the club and sort of everybody, the feeling of everybody pulling together, I think seems to have helped him. And he has been good.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'm not saying that. I just
he's not like Richie Mo'unga. He's not really that kind of 10. He's much more of an English style 10, in a sort of not running, take the ball, move it on, good at kicking out of hand, good at kicking for the posts generally. I think he's been a good signing, but not an amazing signing.
I just had that expectation he from him because of what he'd done at the Highlanders, where they'd won Super Rugby. That's what I expected him to be like, and that's the impact that I wanted him to have. But as I say, that's really what I was going at. But I didn't want to get apologies. I didn't want to go down the rabbit trap of bashing Wasps, because actually Wasps were really brilliant, and they've put themselves well in the picture to be title contenders. I think they're super. I think they're playing some really good rugby. You can argue that Exeter didn't have their strongest team, but to be honest, I don't think Noel, Hogg make that much of a difference. Well, it wasn't just Hogg; it was Johnny Hill as well in there as well. But I don't know how much of a massive difference they would have made to that. I think Wasps were just a bit better than them.
Difficult to say. Defending in the outside channels, certainly for the Bassett to where Bassett made the break.
Yeah. That's Hendrickson getting caught. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you could have done slightly better there, but I need to watch it back. Yeah, I know. I think this is a Wasps being good game. This wasn't an Exeter being bad game.
No.
I agree. I would just quickly like to say, you mentioned the two of them earlier, but I absolutely love the creative thinking of Blackett, that working out a way to make Fekitoa even more effective than he has been, particularly in an attacking sense, because last season he was fantastic in defence, and in attack we hadn't quite seen it yet. This season, gets him going in attack, then he's out for a couple of weeks. Blackett thinks, well, rather not change the entire system, haven't got an obvious replacement. Wan de Jong's not been on fantastic form. Puts Paolo Udogwu in at 13. It's just stunning. Now, we're going to talk about it later, but I'm going to say it now. Paolo Udogwu for the Lions.
Oh God, Jesus Christ. That's a huge call.
This is very bold.
That is bold.
Very, very
I'd
bold.
say Paolo Udogwu's got himself in line for an England shot, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think if you look at some other wingers that are around at the moment, I don't think it's that short 20 meters of pure gas power. And he actually, when they first played him at 13, I was like, this is going to be atrocious. He's going to get run over. And he was absolutely fantastic. He has to start for every game for them in some regard, wherever they slot him in, whether he's playing 13 or he's on the wing. Like, superb. I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, no, he's always been special. I'm really glad that they've worked out how to get the most out of him. I've always loved him.
Before I do forget, because I do want to credit him, it's Will Porter, who is another one to watch out for this year. He fantastic cover tackle. He looks very, very good. Well, let's move on then. You said Paolo Udogwu as your Lions bolter. Anyone else you've got lined up? We've kind of Alfie Barbary is the most obvious one. We talked about him quite a lot as a guy who have a big 21 injury when he comes back. Anyone else? Yeah. And Freddie Stewart we talked about already. Is ones that I had as well.
Those were my most obvious ones, and I can't really talk about any of the other nations. I've not watched enough.
I had two more. I had Charlie. I'd say watch out for Charlie Atkinson when he gets to go. When Umunga, I think he's going to be something quite special. And the only other one that I could really think of, there's a couple of New Zealander lads that are kicking around who had some good Mitre 10 competitions, but I think big things are coming from Trevor Hazier, the Melbourne Rebels second row. I expect him to have a really big 2021. So watch out for him if you're not familiar with Trevor Hazier. 19, 6'6", absolutely, he's just absolutely huge. Australian second row. They're looking at him to fill the voids that have been left behind. Would be my ones, and obviously Freddie Stewart we talked about at the moment. There's some players to keep an eye on, but Will Porter's another one. Keep an eye out for Will Porter, that 9. He looks a decent little operator.
My two, I don't know if we were sort of going to move on to the more sort of general ones to watch this year. My two, certainly from a New Zealand perspective, would be Zahn Sullivan, the 15 at the Blues. Bowden Barrett leaving, not an obvious player coming in. He's the same age as Will Jordan when Will Jordan first started playing for the Crusaders. Had a fantastic Mitre 10 tournament for Auckland. 6'5" fullback that can play 10. We like the sound of that. Goal kicking, strong, fast. What more could you want? An absolute dream of a player. And then the other one, which sometimes you think New Zealand rugby, they do everything perfectly. Every player is put in a position to succeed and given the opportunity when they need it. And sometimes you think, why is that guy there? He should be starting for another club. What is he doing? Xavier Rowe is second at scrum half. But he's going to be the third choice 9 at the Chiefs this year. It's quite weird. And I don't really understand why, given that it's not a position where they have extraordinary depth, especially the Hurricanes with Perinara leaving and Christie being injured. I would have moved him on. Obviously, it makes sense to keep him in the Chiefs system with coaches that he's familiar with and other players that he's familiar with. But I think he's good enough to start.
Yeah, he was another one he was one of the lads I was thinking of. Anyone else you've got? I've gone a bit blank of anyone that I really think will. I've sort of said the ones I think that will have a very, very good year, like a breakout year.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to say because this isn't really this isn't a year when there'd be a lot of breakout players, particularly in Super Rugby, because usually they have a big exodus post World Cup, which was last year. So we saw the various people come in, sort of Caleb Clark coming in because, well, there wasn't really any Blues winger leaving, but various Crusaders players coming to the fore because other players weren't playing. So we saw more of Quinton Strange because Scott Barrett wasn't playing 6, because Sam Whitelock wasn't there, and things like that. We saw more people have opportunities. So this one might be more of a consolidation and just those guys that appeared last year going to the next level, with a few names. Obviously, Sullivan and Rowe, I think, would be the ones I would expect to make an appearance.
Well, there's some people for you guys to keep an eye out for when you're watching your various rugby streaming platforms. Just to go over some other news from the wonderful world of rugby union. Connacht have beaten Leinster to end their 26-game winning streak, which is nice to have a bit of a competition back in the Pro 14. Ulster are now the only unbeaten team in Europe across all the major leagues. Our beloved Bordeaux are up to 8th. They beat Toulon, a decent away side, Toulon, with Etzebeth and Nono, 31-18, Jalibert, Woking, Burios scoring our tries. So if you're fans of Bordeaux like us, good result for us. A couple of transfers. The Dwan van der Meer to Edinburgh. He's gone from Edinburgh to Worcester. We've seen also Gloucester have signed Andrew Davidson, who's the 24-year-old second row from Edinburgh as well. So another Edinburgh player out the door. The Scottish exodus continues. But the big one today, which I saw on his Instagram, and I'm really pleased he signed for them, Kavita Kundrani is signed for Western Force, which I think is a wonderful pickup for them, because he was still doing by far the best Brumbies centre they've got. Well, apart from Orani Simoni, but yeah, I'm pleased that Kundrani's gone to the Force though. They're building a good team down there with Rob Carney there. Rob Carney's gone there obviously as well.
All sorts of interesting players there. A couple of Argentinians out of the Jaguares, Miotti being probably the headline, who'll hopefully start at 10. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. I think I can't remember who the coaching staff is for the Force. It'll give us a bit of an indication usually of how a team like that will get on. I have a feeling is it Laurie who was coach at Gloucester a couple of years ago? Big guy.
Laurie Fisher.
Laurie
Yeah,
Fisher.
I don't think Laurie Fisher's there.
Certainly
Tim Sampson's the coach of the Western Force at the moment, and there's Dave Vessels as well, who's coached over here. I think he was at Leicester.
Yeah, no, he's quite good. He was I think it was at the Rebels a few years ago.
But I thought Laurie Fisher was at somewhere else. I swear I saw his hat somewhere.
Yes, very distinctive.
Let's have a quick gander. But some interesting signings. Thoughts on Joanne van der Merwe going to Worcester?
Classic Worcester, really. Get a really, really good winger.
He's the Brumbies coach. Sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
Laurie Fisher's the Brumbies. Yeah, van der Merwe, Worcester. Classic Worcester sign, isn't it?
Very. And not really one that they necessarily need right now, weirdly. They have a few good wingers. Nick David's been really good. Tom Howe's been playing well.
Perry Humphries is good. You've got Nano, obviously.
Obviously, it's the kind of thing you can always improve in when you have the opportunity to get an international and a player as good as van der Merwe, you might as well try. So good for them, and hopefully he plays well.
Well, they need someone to. They never really replaced Josh Adams, and Bryce Heem's been going well for too long. So another one that they lost in recent years. So it's not a completely. It's a good signing for them. They're going to pay him a lot of money. It's a good move for him because he's going to play Premiership rugby. Good competition. He's going to make a lot of money. He likes the way Worcester play. He will fit their style. Whether they'll be in the Premiership or not is something. It's something different, and that will nicely move us on to predictions. And on that, Premiership relegation, I'm going Worcester.
Okay. Do you want to explain why, or?
I don't get me wrong. I love Worcester. There's always something. I've always sort of looked at Worcester and gone, I do really like you as a club. I think Newcastle have got off to a good start, and I think they will have enough to stay up. I do think they'll have they'll struggle in the back end of in the end of the season. I just worry about Worcester's strength and depth. If they do get a couple of injuries, I think they're going to struggle. I think the others, and also I think the sides around them are better that have got deeper squads. I think, like, if you look at the guys that you've got them around them, like Gloucester have got guys to come back in, like the likes of Carreras, Hines will make a difference for them. Leicester, they've got obviously those internationals. You've got London Irish. I think London Irish they haven't played their best team yet, and they've looked relatively good, and those wins in Europe will make a difference. Irish will definitely be in and around in the mix. But I would say it's going to be the closest. It will go down to the final day. I really do think that. I don't think someone's going to pull away, but I think it will be Worcester at the end.
I don't think anyone's going to get relegated this year.
Oh, you think, are you going to be ring fencing, man? Are you?
I am not quite ring fencing, but certainly informal ring fencing of bringing up Ealing and Saracens. I think it doesn't. I really like the idea, and obviously Ealing proving that they're capable of it and Newcastle being so solid, having been in the Championship for a couple of years, shows that the gap isn't enormous, but it's not good for the.
It's not good for the financial side of the game, is it? You are bleeding money.
Yeah, exactly. It causes so many weird, like, perverse incentive decisions. Having the relegation,
it also made England a lot stronger, because if you had 13 teams to pick from and do a little bit more like New Zealand, where you put your best players a little bit more round into those teams, you've got more opportunities for better England players to come through.
Well, like France do.
Yeah.
France have 14 top level pro teams, and they currently have 5 fantastic under 24-year-old fly halves available. Like, it's a numbers game. It's just all a numbers game. Now, I'm not certain of this, but the big clue I've taken recently, and this is very wild, I'm currently on the Ealing Trailfinders news website, sort of the sub bit of their website. Now, obviously, Ealing are not playing any rugby. Nothing else is really happening. But despite that, they are hiring now, obviously, women's academy head coach is slightly separate, but they're hiring an assistant to the DOR. They're hiring a physiotherapist. They're hiring an S&C coach. They're hiring an academy head coach. They're hiring a head of medical services. They're hiring a head of personal development and transition. So moving academy players into the senior squad and getting them ready for real life. They're hiring a marketing and communications executive. They're opening a new bar. Why are they opening a new bar? Anyway, it's
moving to suggest that potentially they could be going up.
Yeah, Ealing have received some, let's say, I'm speculating here, but I think they've received a bit of encouragement from Premiership Rugby that now is the time to invest and get everything sorted out and get yourself ready, because this time next year, the Premiership's going to look different.
Because I think I don't disagree with you. I actually think the more I thought about it, the more ring fencing becomes more attractive, because you look at Super Rugby Aotearoa. Yes, you got 5 teams, but that was the best club competition there's been for many, many years. But there's no relegation in that. It means that these teams can go full throttle without having the pressure. It means we can see the likes of Alfie Barbary, your Charlie Atkinsons, your Freddie Stewart's playing, which you get to see in New Zealand with Caleb Clark, Will Jordan. I think that can only be a positive. And also with Ealing, if they come up and it's not financially viable and they get battered and they're like, flip, this isn't working, and they don't recruit competitive players, then they just go, okay, thanks very much, thanks for the opportunity, we'll see you later, and they can just move back down.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if you have been keeping up with it, but the structure of the Championship this year may be an indicator for how the Premiership will look after this, because like none of us want the Premiership clubs playing any more games in a season. That's not really in anybody's interest. Maybe a couple more, but you have to.
But it'd only be one more, and also if you had the bye week, because that would be an incentive, because you just have a bye week.
Exactly, but the structure of the Championship for this truncated season, is that they've separated them out into 2 sub leagues, and then the winner of each sub league play each other in the final. And Ealing are going to win one sub league, and Saracens are going to win the other sub league. And don't be surprised when we end up with a sort of conference system in the Premiership, with the top 2 from each conference going into the playoffs, or maybe even the top 4 from each conference. I don't like that. Oh, Johnny, it'd be fantastic.
No, I wouldn't like that.
Yes, come on.
I don't like that. Let everyone play everyone. Have a break.
There's not enough time in the year for 14 teams to play everyone. We already see how much chaos it causes in France.
Oh yeah, well, I'm talking about. I haven't even added up properly, have I? Because I'm thinking about this 13 because someone's going down. What am I on about? I'm terrible.
It's 26 regular season games if there are 14 teams in the league.
Then actually, 7 leagues would probably make a bit of sense.
Well, many variations.
It's a discussion for another day.
Yes,
but that's a good bold prediction. Well, in the current state of affairs, who's going to win the Premiership?
Alfie Barbary will be fit for the playoffs, so probably Wasps.
I'm going to go Wasps.
In all seriousness, who knows? Exeter will sort themselves out.
I think it'll be Wasps.
Yeah. they're a tiny bit fragile. I fear. Atkinson's emergence is reassuring because it means that they're not super reliant on a 19-year-old 10, or a 20-year-old 10 in Manga is now, I think.
Yeah, but Atkinson's the same age, isn't he?
Well, no, but they've got two of them. So when Imanga gets run over by Manu Tuolangi in mid-April, or Eddie Jones puts him in a blender in an England training session, Atkinson is still there. They have another option that's not Jimmy Gopperth at 10, basically. Yeah. If Wasps keep enough players fit, which I think they can, that would be good.
European.
No COVID nonsense, obviously.
Yeah. European winner.
Difficult to look past Toulouse, isn't it?
I was going to say Racing.
Yeah.
Because
I think it'll be a French team. The talent there's just too much talent in France right now. Every club has a player who would walk into any Premiership club. It's fantastic. It's honestly could be a good New Year's resolution. Watch more top 14. I found myself watching a lot of football recently, but yeah, top 14 is a lot of fun.
And the only final one that I had was Lions Bolters, and you said Paolo Adoglu. I'm going to make an also very bold claim. Alfie Barbary for the Lions.
That's not that bold. That is entirely in line with what Warren Gatland wants, I think.
I think he'll go.
Adoglu is a bit weirder, in my opinion. But yeah, Barbary when he's fit is quite special.
Anyone else?
I'd love one thing. Now he's obviously Irish, so hopefully he doesn't come back in time for the Six Nations, and then sort of disappears off into the ether for the World Cup. But I would really love Dan Levy to get back into form. When he was fit a couple of years ago.
He looked good. He was very good.
An absolutely incredible rugby player. Good at absolutely everything, which is very difficult. So yeah, unlikely given the competition at 7 and his not quite being back at full strength, but that's my dream. Basically, I want anybody who's had a long-term injury to be back as good as they ever were, and anybody who's young to be as good as they could possibly be. That's all I want out of rugby, if that's okay.
I'm sure we can grant you that wish, mate. I mean, Santa's just been, but I'm sure we can.
Oh, yeah, should have asked a couple of weeks ago.
Well, there's a lot to come. A lot of big thing 2021.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll get everything we can ever ask for. But the one thing that I can say for certain is the Rock and Roll podcast is going to be here. Let's keep growing this podcast, keep growing it. So please, if you have access to this, thank you very much. We do really appreciate it. Please do let your friends know. As I say, we don't take it ourselves very seriously. We're just 4 blokes. Most of the time, it's just me and Harry, but sometimes we get Johnny and Joe. I mean, Joe's just left halfway through this one. No jokes. His internet problems. But as I say, we are just 4 blokes with an opinion, but we just think we just chat from the fans' perspective. So give us a follow on Instagram, give us a like on the vid, and yeah.
Cool. Cheers. Have a good week.